going to start with introductions, and we will be recording this session for everyone here today. So ODDS staff here with you today is myself, Yolanda Garcia. I am the CEN program coordinator. If I haven't had the honor and privilege of meeting you yet, it's nice to meet you virtually. As well as Caitlin Shockley, the policy manager and my supervisor. And I think many of you already know her. And joining us today is Kathy Valderrama as well. And Kathy is going to be helping us coordinate the Zoom meetings. And she is the hostess with the mostest. And I'm very thankful that she's willing to help us here today. So Kathy, if you'd like to join or switch to the next slide, we'll go over the agenda. So today, the purpose of this meeting is to just kind of provide a little bit of Q&A time, kind of some technical assistance, answer any questions you may have, and talk about some upcoming work that we have going on in the CEN program. So the items that we will be covering today are the waitlist, which is opening on November 1st. And there is a new worker guide that will be coming out in the next week, as well as there is a for kids who are currently coded process to help them get into the CEN program waiver services. And we'll go over that in a minute. And there was a little bit of a data display issue that we'd like to just kind of present to the group and have any opportunity to answer questions you may have. And what we're going to do is we'll present this information, and at the end, we will answer any questions in the specific Q&A time. So we would ask that everybody hold their questions till the end. And if you'd like to, you can go ahead and put those in the chat. And at the end, we will also be answering questions then. And Caitlin is going to be monitoring the chat and kind of responding to those questions as they come in as well. So let's go ahead and dive in. The first topic on our agenda is the opening of the CEN waitlist. There's been quite a bit of interest in this. It's generated a lot of inquiries into the actual CEN inbox, email inbox. And so on a daily basis, I'm seeing 3 or more inquiries about how can I get on the wait list? Who can put me on the wait list? When does that open? So as we all know, children who were coded 5B or 5M before May 2nd of this year were already automatically incorporated onto that wait list. And there has been some little bit of misunderstanding about who is on there now and who isn't. So I share that just to say anybody who had a 5B or 5M coding before May 2nd has already been incorporated into the wait list. Anybody who's had a ONA coding after May 2nd will need to be added to the wait list. And so again, at 8 a.m. November 1st, that link to add children to the wait list will open, and a service coordinator or a parent, it doesn't have to be either, one or the other, anyone can go on there and add their child. They can add their child by filling out a simple form that is going to capture very basic information such as, the name and address and preferred language. And then they will submit it to us here at ODDS, and they should be able to complete that fairly easy and receive confirmation of that. If for whatever reason, the service coordinators are not able to help the family and the family is not comfortable using a computer to submit that, we know that the computer link will be the quickest route to get on the wait list. However, there is a process that form can be printed. A PDF form will be available in 6 different languages, English, Spanish, and I can't remember all the others, but they're top 6 languages. They can print that form and they will be able to mail that request form to us at the Children's Extraordinary Needs Program, ODDS, and there's the address on the screen that they can send that to. And this information on the website, so you don't have to hurry and write anything down. We've got this for you. And so when they mail it to us, the date that we will use to enter them onto the wait list is the date that the actual letter is received in our office. So not the date that they send it in the mail. So when they send it in the mail, it's not considered on the list. We have to actually get the form in our office. So when we get that form physically in our office, we will date stamp it and get them on the list. So that does cause a little bit of mailing delay because of the days it takes. So the preferred method is if a service coordinator can sit down with the family and help them complete that form and submit it electronically to get them on the wait list right away. That's the most expedited path to get it on the wait list. So can we go to the next slide, please? So I'm sure everybody on this call has seen the action request that was sent out about 2 weeks ago. The transmittal went out. The due date for the transmittal was today, and so that's kind of significant that we're having this conversation today. What we were asking, or what this action require transmittal was putting out for all of you, was that we needed to inform these families who have children who fall within the 5B, 5M service coding to be able to be aware that they can be on the wait list. So the request was for service coordinators to make sure that they informed families that when the wait list was opening, and how to help them get on that, right? So this only applied to the children who became 5B or 5M after May 2nd, 2024. So anybody before that, we've already got them on the wait list, okay? And so that's what this is referencing. And this AR was, like I said, already been sent out. I've received some inquiries about it, but happy to answer any questions you have about this AR later on in this presentation. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is just kind of a little brief kind of preview for all of you. This is what you will see. This exact screen here is what you will see when you click on the link that is going to go live November 1st on the CEN webpage. You'll click on the link and it'll bring you to this form. Very basic information, who the submitter is. That information is relevant because it could be either a service coordinator or parent or a guardian filling out this form, right? So based on your answers, additional drop downs will come in. So if it's a service coordinator, then at some point we'll ask for you to enter your information so we'll know who the service coordinator is. If it's a parent, it'll go straight to the child information and the parent will go on throughout the form. Basic information such as address, language preferred, child's information, preferred name, birth date, those type of things. It should be fairly simple and it should take 2 minutes or less to complete the form. Next slide there. So this is a critical piece in the process. If you are submitting a request to add a child to the CEN waitlist, you will receive a confirmation email after you hit submit on that form. If you did not receive a confirmation email, there may have been something that went wrong in the process and your submittal was not received. So please be sure to check that you've received a confirmation email. Down here is kind of a sample of the language or the wording that you'll see in that. It explains, that you might not see the child appear in Express system right away. It'll take a couple days to get them entered into the Express system. But if you have any questions, it's got the CEN program email address in there. And it also explains a little bit of how the wait list is working or what process you can anticipate to see for the wait list. Next slide, please. And now we're going to move into the CEN worker guide, and Caitlin's going to share about that guide.
Yeah, thanks, Yolanda. So back in May, we released a worker guide about the startup of the Children's Extraordinary Needs program. So that explained how the randomization process worked, how we got to the initial wait list by pulling all of the data for all of the children on May 2nd, 2024 that were in that 5B, 5M group. And it explained the initial contact requirements. So when we first sent out the very first 155 offer letters to people, what was required of case management entities after that. So that worker guide will sunset because now we're into the ongoing kind of permanent maintenance mode of the program, which is super exciting. So next week on Thursday, when transmittals release, there will be the new Children's Extraordinary Needs worker guide. So it will supersede that initial kind of startup guide, and it will still include step-by-step instructions, things we've learned along the way that we've based on the questions that we've been getting. So it's really a lot more information than was in the initial guide, but instructions for case management entities and providers. So once a child is offered a spot in the program, what all the things that have to happen and in what order, information on that transition that some children face from the Children's Intensive and Home Services program into the Community Developmental Disability program, links to the training modules and resources for parents and the client children, express information, so how to pull reports for your local CME about children that are in the program, how to pull reports on children that are on the wait list, how to view that information quickly in Express so that when parents are calling and saying, hey, where's my kid on the wait list, or have they moved at all in the last month, you're able to answer those questions with a quick look in Express. Information on how the waitlist functions, and then still some resources and frequently asked questions. So it should have a lot more information and should satisfy most of the things that you need to know. But of course, as always, the email box is open, and Yolanda is here and will continue to be here as a resource for you all as things come up along the way.
Very good. Thank you, Caitlin. So this is something that's probably going to be new to most of you here on this call today. There is a little bit of a glitch in the coding for some of the children who are currently receiving CHIP services and not coded for Medicaid or waiver services. If a child is currently coded for CHIP, and the coding you will see is CH2 or just other additional waiver coding to it, that means that that particular child has not been approved for waiver services. And in the meantime, what we need to do on your end, or what you would need to do, is to actually submit a request. So it's a manual email that you would have to send to the Eligibility Coordination Unit that would be requesting that this particular child be reviewed or receive a presumptive medical disability determination by the DMDD or PMDDT team. So we have an actual team that goes through and reviews these, makes these medical disability determinations for these children so that they can actually be coded and offered the proper Medicaid group services so they can be enrolled in the CEN program. So this is related to the funding and what funding is used for the CEN program. It is waivered services, and that is through Medicaid. So we do need to get those children coded in the right, with the right approval. So it is kind of a little glitch in the system that will be fixed come January 2025. There's a new MCHIP process that will make it so you don't have to do this anymore. But in the meantime, we don't want any kiddos losing their opportunity to participate in the CEN program. So what we are doing is we are allowing a little extended time for them to get through this presumptive medical determination process and get them the proper coding so that they can participate in the CEN program if that's what the family chooses to do. So what does this process look like on our end? So when a kiddo comes up on the wait list and they're going to be, they're number one, they're spot number one, and they're next to be offered a spot in the CEN program, I will go through and do kind of a early eligibility determination just to check their coding, make sure that all the things are appropriate to offer them the next spot on the wait list or the next spot in the program that's opened. And if I see that they have CH2 coding or any kind of CHIP coding, I will then send a letter to the family notifying them of the issue and notifying them that action needs to be taken and a decision needs to happen. And I will also be copying via email the service coordinator. At that point in time, the service coordinator will work with the family to discuss what their choices are and help them come to a decision if they would like to move forward with the CEN program and pursue the presumptive medical disability determination process and get that referral completed. If they choose to do that, then it would be on the service coordinator to email the Eligibility Coordination Unit, ECU, and this is the email address for them. and ask for a PMDDT referral. That's exactly what you need to do. Then you will receive a form, which is basically kind of a request for information or approval for medical, which signs for approval for ODDS to get medical and school records to be able to expedite that process of making that determination. This form is critical piece in the process. It's a critical piece in the process because if that form is not signed, even if those records should not apply to that particular kiddo, we will still have to send that form back. It'll cause additional delays in the process, and we need the family to sign off on that or initial every piece on that form. So having that done ahead of time kind of expedites everything, and it helps the team that makes the determination process have all of the information that they need to expedite the process for the family. So the quicker they get through the PMDDT process, the quicker they can get enrolled into the CEN program. So just want to point out this process and let everybody know this is only a temporary process till January, till we can put a system into place that will kind of alleviate this. But in the meantime, we don't want to turn down any families who might be able to benefit from the CEN program and who have the opportunity to be next on the wait list and join. So this is kind of a stopgap method that we've put into place. And we'll make sure that you have all of the email addresses referenced in this PowerPoint, so you don't have to worry about quickly writing things down and taking notes. Okay, next slide. This is the final topic that we're going to touch on before we go into the Q&A. Some of you may or may not be aware, but on October 8th, a parent did alert us here at ODDS of a data display error in regards to where their children were being displayed on the wait list. So the error particularly affected 30 families. There were 30 different children on the wait list, and they were showing up at the incorrect spot. So once we were made aware of this error, we fixed it. The lead business analyst for Express went in and manually reviewed every single person on the wait list to make sure that they were on the correct spot of the list. The error was fixed October 10th, and all those families were notified. So there's nothing that needs to happen now. This is just so that all of the service coordinators and the case management entities are aware of the issue and aware that it has already been fixed. So if you get any questions from families or any inquiries and you're not quite sure what to say, there's more information on this specific issue on the CEN webpage. There's also an FAQs or frequently asked questions section where you can go through and really get into the nitty-gritty of exactly what the issue was, how things were displayed, how we fixed it, and going forward what we will do so that this doesn't happen again. So next slide, please. These are some resources we'd like to point out for you. ODDS transmittals. We had an action request that was referenced earlier with the due date of today for all families to be notified of the November 1st opening of the CEN web waitlist that will be posted on the CEN web page. There's also the link to the worker guides where you can find this new worker guide that will be released next week. And of course, the CEN webpage itself, that's going to be really critical going forward, especially as November 1st rolls around. That's where all the links and the PDFs to be able to sign up for the CEN waitlist will be located. And then we have the complaint webpage there. So again, this PowerPoint will be shared with you all, so that way you guys will have these resources. And now I think we're at the whole reason we're here, right, is to hear from you guys and answer any questions you may have. Even if it's a topic that I didn't cover today in the slides, if you have a burning question about the CEN program, I'm happy to answer it. And if I can't answer it, we have Caitlin here available to answer those. She is really the kind of person who's been on the ground since day one, helping establish this program, and she knows everything there is to know about CEN at this point. So, Caitlin, do you want to start with what we have in the chat?
Yeah, so far in the chat, just a confirmation on what the OEP eligibility coordination unit email address is. So nothing else so far. Okay, Elizabeth is asking the timeline for parents accessing this program. Elizabeth, can you say more about what your question? You can come off mute if that's easier.
Thank you. I was just wondering, once it has, the process has been completed for that parent or guardian, that they are at the point of providing the services, how long is that timeline for that parent or guardian?
When a parent is offered the program or their child is offered the program, the parent has 60 days to answer and basically accept or decline. And some parents do take that full length of time because there may be lots of things that they're reasons why they might not be sure if they want to participate. But once they agree, we have already verified their eligibility. So then the only delay basically from that point until they can start working is the time that it takes to get through all the steps. So they have to get hired by a provider agency. They have to take the required training, which is super quick and now available 24/7 on Workday. There has to be a change form that's done by the service coordinator, a new freedom of choice form completed. So there are those steps. So it could, that really depends on all the team members, how long that takes, but does not take long for us to verify their eligibility. Pretty quick after they tell us their answer.
Right. So I understand that piece about, but
Okay.
I'm talking about when they actually start working. So there's only 155, right, that are
Mm-hmm.
starting.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the time frame for that period for that parent to be working with their child? 3 months, 6 months, 120
How
hours?
long can they work?
Right.
Oh, they would be in the program until the child is no longer eligible, including if the child turns 18. The parent can continue to be paid to provide 20 hours a week of care.
Okay, so there's no cap. I mean, with the exception of 18, or the child leaves the program for whatever
Because
reason,
maybe they have a service
or,
group change and
right,
they are, that could be a reason. They move out of Oregon, they move out of the family
yeah,
home,
right,
things like that. But yeah, otherwise it continues on and it's not a time limited program.
right. So that was the clarification I was needing. So
Yeah.
in the event, because here in my office, I've had my staff started to have the conversation about the wait list and that process. And so just want to make sure that they are providing the correct information, and that when they are going to be on the wait list, it may not be in 6 months that the next number is coming up, for example.
Oh, it could be much longer than that.
Right,
Because
I know.
there's like,
It's,
yeah.
so they could essentially be on hold and waiting for a long time, years, whatever that might look like, depending on what their assigned number is on that wait list.
Yes, unfortunately, that's correct because the program is so small with only 155 slots, and there's already around 1,400 children on the wait list.
Right.
And we don't expect a lot of turnover once the program is up
Mhm.
and full. It's really just that aging out. So a small number. I think we factored in a 6% turnover rate or so per year, which is just a guess based on what
Right.
happens in the CIS programs. Yeah.
Right. So that's what I was just needing to
Yeah.
make sure I had clarification. So when the conversation is happening, that we want to make sure they understand that it's not going to be a quick turnover
Yes.
with those 155 slots opening, whatever that is, 25 kind of thing. When they do become open, that it may be a while. And so I don't want those parents or guardians banking on, like, oh, January of 2025, I'm up next kind of thing. So I just want to make sure that,
Great point, Liz.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay. And then, oh, there's some other questions, so I'll let those go first.
Sure. There's a question from Chris. Are service groups that are not 5M, 5B going to be eligible for CEN? Or does the child have to be 5M, 5B? So yes, the child has to be 5M or 5B. A child who is just in service group 5, not related to medical or behavior support needs, is not eligible for this program. So Senate Bill 91 that passed legislature and led to the creation of this program specified that it's only for children that are in that highest service group because of their very high behavior or very high medical needs. Ronnie says they have an infant on their caseload who is 5. Is that the same as a child 5? Ronnie, are they service group 5?
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
And you kind of just answered that question the way you just said that. If they don't have the medical or the behavior, then they're just 5. So that's not really qualifying for that.
Right.
So I
Right.
appreciate that. Thank you.
And this question is about the CHIP process. Sylvia asks, when a child applies for the wait list, will at that time the family be notified if they have the CH2 coding issue? So just when they're added to the wait list, Sylvia?
Yes, I wasn't sure if you meant not until their name comes up or sooner when, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, not until their name comes up, Sylvia. No eligibility criteria will be reviewed until a spot comes up and their name comes to the top of the list. And at that point, then we'll do the review and allow the extra time for them to switch to different waiver coding if that's necessary.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah. And the reason for that really is, like with this conversation with Liz, that wait list is expected to move very slowly. And so we expect that in that time, children might go down to service group 4 and then come back up to service group 5B and then go back down, or things like that can change. And we don't want kids booted off the wait list when that happens and then having to come back. So that fluctuation in their potential eligibility criteria, we'll just leave that alone while they're on the wait list. And then when their name actually comes up and it's time to enter the program, that's when it matters if they're eligible or not, because otherwise, we would have just a lot of kids kind of off and on and off and on, and their numbers all shifting all the time. And we don't want that kind of instability. So instead, it's just waiting till the end. Then we check verify their eligibility and give them the time they need to get things in order, if so. Liz, you want to go ahead with your next questions and then we'll go back to the chat? And don't be afraid to take up time. We're all here. We have plenty of time.
So when children are assigned a number and they're on the wait list, but they are children, and I know that Yolanda has already responded to my staff for this, but when they are in the custody of either the tribe's child welfare program or the state child welfare program, that's kind of it's pointless because they're not going to be able to access the program, because they're in foster care, whatever that looks like, whether it's through DD or child welfare. And so at one point, does it become where we know that some of those kids are going to be long-term child welfare kids? And once we get closer to them being 18, would it be beneficial that at 17, we're going to say, and their number is still 272 as an example, it would be pointless to keep them on the wait list, because 272, they might have been 272 for the last year, 2 years, and they haven't moved in that time. And then they're going to be 18 in another year. So since there's no way for them to access the program, wouldn't it be a good thing to just send a notification to say, please remove this child because they're going to be 18 in a year, 8 months, 10 months, whatever it is, and this is their assigned wait list number?
Here's what I will say to that, Elizabeth. I don't know if you prefer Liz or, but here's what I would say to that. This is such a new program, and we really don't know. And this is not Caitlin's theory. This is my theory. So Caitlin, feel free to, tell me I'm wrong after this, but we really don't know what the next legislative session is going to bring for this program. If that looks like more funding or a hold in funding, we just couldn't really say at this point. And I would prefer those kiddos, this is just my preference as a program coordinator, to hang on to their spot on the list until they really no longer qualify. We can't really say if adoption would happen, because at that point, the adoptive parents become legal parents, and then they can qualify under that circumstance. or if a guardian steps in, we'll take over guardianship. You know, we just really can't foresee what's going to happen. So it would almost be my preference for that kiddo to hold their spot on the list until really they don't qualify any longer. It's really no harm or foul for anyone, because if that kiddo is not going to qualify, then and they'll get their notice. But up until the very last moment, they've had the opportunity to be part of any opening in the program that should come up during the time they were eligible. And so that's my thoughts on that. And Caitlin, you can take it from there.
I agree. I mean, the only thing that will automatically boot them off the wait list is turning 18, so that, you know, that service group changes won't, but turning 18 does. They automatically, that's the pre-entered waitlist end date. So for every child that's on the waitlist, their end date is automatically calculated as their 18th birthday. And thus we manually override it because they've moved off the waitlist and come into the program. Then we change the date to the date that happened. So they're not hurting anything by being on that list. And things could change, like Yolanda said. And if that's the case, when their name comes up, that they are not, you know, in the family home and they don't have someone that can act in that role as a parent, then that's okay. And then we would move to the next child. And it's, but you know, things might change, and I would say they can just hold on unless someone wants to be taken off the wait list, in which case we'll of course do that.
Yeah, that's their choice to do that.
Okay.
Well, we're kind
Thank
of
you for
on that.
clarification.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, thank you for that clarification. I was just thinking about, I know that in tribal child welfare, the tribe does not look at adoption because the tribe does not support terminating parental rights. So children that are in child welfare custody will continue to stay in child welfare custody, either up to 18 or 22, depending on the tribal juvenile code allows. Well, Warm Springs, I should say. I shouldn't say any other tribe, but Warm Springs, 18 or 22. And so I was just thinking, I know that some of those kids may be long-term and then they'll just age out. And so that's what I was really thinking about, was if this allows them to be off of the list, allowing another child that might be able to move up into that number, then I was just kind of thinking what that would be. But I get what you're saying. Thank you.
The other piece to this is, I see Mike has a comment in the questions here, a question in the comment section here. It says, obviously it's early days in the program, but is there any discussion about expansion of the program in the future? Any possibility of opening more slots in the future? So this question comes up a lot, and I'm going to let Caitlin answer this question because I know she gets it quite frequently.
Thanks, Yolanda, and thanks, Mike, for that question. That really depends on the legislature, and we don't know what might happen. There's a lot of interest in this program. There's still a lot of advocacy from parent groups in expanding the program. So we expect to see bills come forward this next session. We don't know if they'll pass or how, you know, how they will shake out in the end, but right at this point, with the funding we have now appropriated from the legislature for the program, we can only serve 155, but it could change based on what happens in this next long session. And if that's the case, then we would expand the program, but we don't know. Sylvia asks if children enrolled in CIIS who request the CEN program are able to access K-Plan ancillary services, and the answer is yes. So all of the services available through the K-Plan continue to be available for children regardless of which waiver they're on. So they have access to those K-Plan services while they're in a CIIS waiver. They still have access to all those K-Plan services if they switch to the CEN program and the CEN waiver. And then Chris is asking if families will be informed of their child's initial number on the wait list, like when they add themselves through the link on the web page, or if it will be dependent on the service coordinator. And Yolanda, I believe it will be dependent on the service coordinator looking that up for them. We will enter them into Express after receiving that information from the application. And then the service coordinator will have to look in Express. I don't think there's an automated way to generate that information and get it to the family.
No, there isn't. But the great thing is that the service coordinators can now run a report and get that information in real time, where early on in the program that wasn't available in Express. And so that really is exciting. Any other questions? Maybe not on the list here, or not anything we spoke about today, anything that you are really needing to know or curious to know about the program?
Actually, I have a follow-up question. This is Chris from Lane County. I was trying to understand if there's a reason why the kids who after May 2nd till now, why there hasn't been a list created for those kids to be automatically added to the wait list, and why we're doing that manually between families and coordinators when the initial one with the initial wait list was done through ODDS and Express.
That's a great question, Chris. So the initial process was done that way in order to with the intent and effort of being equitable, so that instead of a kind of first come first served process where people would go in order that they were received, we took it upon ourselves to take every child that was in 5B 5M, assign them a random number. Numbers 1 through 155 were offered the program. Numbers 156 and up were put on the wait list in that order. And that was just so it wasn't about, and I have information, or I talked to my service coordinator, or I have internet access and I speak English, and now my kid got on because I had access to that information quickly, whereas other families maybe didn't have that level of access and would be later, so that's the process we did just to build the initial one. And then from there, the intent is that we didn't know even then how many people actually want this program or want to be on the wait list. We assumed that, right? So we did that initial randomization, and so far about 1/3 of families have declined the program that have been offered it. So we know that there's plenty of people who don't actually want that. So the automated process of adding them to this wait list as they become 5B or 5M, it's now just based on your interest. If you want to join the program, you have the option to join the program. It's quick and easy to do that. But that's just kind of moving from the initial randomization lottery process so that it was equitable at first, and then first come first serve from here on out.
I guess I'm thinking of the workload issue, and the workload issue will be heavy for service coordinators with 60 or 70 people on their caseload to be updating people on the list versus ODDS, because you already have the info of the 5M, 5B. That would seem to be equitable also for people who don't have internet access still. It's not like after 3 months somebody's gotten access or needs help and support. It would seem like that would be the supportive, equitable thing, would be to assure that 5M, 5B are on that list, because they're actually the ones who can only be eligible, as you stated before. So it's a service coordinator heavy ask to roll this out. And I was kind of surprised that there wouldn't be a similar process to help get it jump started. So
yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
we did this whole plan of how the wait list was established initially and then ongoing was part of our whole public feedback process when the waiver was developed. So the waiver itself describes this process. So if we did change it, we'd have to go back and do a waiver amendment, and it was based on kind of the comments at the time. But I hear what you're saying, and that doesn't mean that it was the best decision or the right decision. So I feel you, Chris. Thank you. And there's a question from Sylvia about, will the new guide explain what to look for in Express or how to run those reports? Yes, and I think that's already available. Let's see, I'm on the Express Help Guides page right now, because that's already, I think one of the emails lists that Express sends out included instructions on that. Let's see. We might have to email it all to you, but there is information in the current startup worker guide, and there's Whoops, sorry about that. I played a video on my screen from Express trying to find that link for you all. But yes, it is available now, and so we can find that and email it to you. Sorry about that. And the guide includes it as well. Josie, I think, has her question answered in the chat.
Just one thing I'd like to
Yeah.
add to that, Josie, and for everybody who might be interested, there is no requirement that a child go through any kind of eligibility or determination process for even DD services before being added to the CEN waitlist. Any child, regardless of if they have an ONA or if they have, you know, an ISP in place or not, if their parent wants them and requests that they be added, we would add them. So that's part also of that equity piece. We don't want to be excluding people based on any kind of eligibility prior to them actually going through an eligibility determination that has, you know, an eligibility determination is more formal and it has actual requirement pieces that we would notify the families of a decision made, and that notice would actually then give a family rights to appeal any determination that we made. If we went ahead and did some kind of pre-screening to that effect ahead of time, that would eliminate that right, and that would not be equitable, and that would be against their rights to a hearing. And so we wouldn't want to do that to a family.
So just to understand what you're saying, they do not need to be already eligibility approved through the CDDP at all. They could be my neighbor next door.
What the?
Yes, that's correct. And that's just added to the wait list. So the requirement in the transmittal was to notify everyone that was 5M and 5B. Those are the children that are, we presume, would be eligible for the program. So those are the children we need to notify and say, the wait list is coming. Do you want help getting added to the wait list? Or here's the information of where you can find it so you can be added to the wait list. Because we aren't being able to do the eligibility determinations as they come in the front door, there's no way for us to screen anything or prove anything for when a child comes in the front door. And we want a low barrier process so that it is easy for anybody from wherever they sit to add, to say, I'm interested in this and I want to be added to the program. We're communicating it carefully. We're advertising it to you all. It's clear that the program is for children who have very high medical or very high behavior support needs. But just like CIIS, a child can apply for that program and sit on a wait list for quite some time, and things change in that period of time. So we don't want them to have to go through an excessive amount of hoops or barriers just to be added to a wait list that they will sit on for, you know, at this point, likely a number of years. So that's the intent of a low barrier, simple process. And then when their name comes up, that is when their eligibility is reviewed. If they are not eligible, they receive a notice, just like they would if they applied for an eligibility determination at a CDDP as a child with an intellectual or developmental disability and they were found ineligible, then they would also get hearing rights, right? So that's how that process works.
Right,
And
but I just want to make sure I heard correctly, because what I heard and what I understand is like, I do eligibility here in Jefferson County. I have 5 kids that I have out of 11 cases in my office. So if those 5 were not found eligible for services through this CDDP, and they got the, you know, the denial notice, I send out the NOPA to them, they could still go and apply themselves for this program, the CEN, not even being associated with the CDDP at all.
Right, and then they would be declined and found ineligible once their name came up. But we aren't able to do that pre-screening at that point because there's nothing to offer them. So they're just being added to a waiting list. Once their name came up, if they're not DD eligible, they don't meet that level of care and they don't meet hospital or nursing facility level of care, then they would be given a notice that says you are ineligible for this program. So that's what would happen there. We aren't doing that when they're maybe 5 or 10 or 15 years away from entering the program, or because those things could change. There's no program for them to be denied entry into at that point. So we're
Right.
not doing that till their name comes up.
Because I've had phone calls coming to my office and asking, does my child have to go through the eligibility process to qualify for this? And
To
so,
qualify for it, they do, but to just add themselves to a wait list, they do not. Does that make sense?
right, so my intent of my question is the conversation that I'm having with these random parents calling to say, I want to get my kid on this wait list. Yes, you can. You got to do that on your own. However, if you want to qualify and be eligible, you still need to come through the eligibility process through my office and be found eligible, whether it's other developmental disability diagnosis or an intellectual disability diagnosis.
Right, that's correct.
Okay, that's, I
Yeah.
just want to make
And
sure
we,
because,
yeah, and we really don't anticipate a lot of people adding themselves to the wait list whose children don't qualify or have no chance of qualifying. We're being very clear about who the program is for, what the eligibility criteria for the program is, for that reason. And, you know, talking to you all rather than requiring everyone in the world to be offered the program and added to the wait list, that action request is very narrow to just those children that are 5B, 5M since May 2nd. So that's the intent, but we aren't going to, there's not a filter process that's going to reject a child because there are kids who are still waiting for CIIS. They're on the CIIS referral list. Maybe there isn't space for them in that program. They don't have IDD. They do have intense medical needs. And so they don't have an ISP. They don't have a case manager. They don't have all of those things. They are still able to access the wait list and then be determined eligible once their name comes up.
right. I just want to make sure I heard that correctly because I've had five phone calls this week just for this. And that's why I really wanted to get on the call today or, for this. So, okay, perfect. Thank you.
We still have a few more minutes, and this is your opportunity. We're here to answer any questions you may have. Concerns, we're hearing the concerns about the staffing issues, and I really appreciate Caitlin's clarification on the ask that we have is that you really inform families what the intent of the program is. We're not out there asking you to put everybody on the list, but we really want you to focus the efforts on children who are 5M and 5B, because those are the children who will really be able to benefit from it. But we're not going to say to families, no, you can't be put on this list. We really can't say that because we don't know what is coming for them in the future, right? If the parents feel heavily that they really want to be on this list and they want to explore that, then we should allow them the opportunity to be on the list and the opportunity to potentially enroll in this program. We're not trying to be exclusive in any way and exclude anyone who may in the future benefit. It'll be a lot better for those families to actually go through the process of understanding requirements and why their child may not be a good fit for this program. And we will do that by partnering with you all to kind of provide that counseling and guidance ahead of time, as well as during the eligibility process, walking them through why they didn't qualify or why their child cannot be enrolled, and then giving them that opportunity to have that appeal process. So it's really about equity and who am I to say you yes, you no, you yes, you no. I'd rather it be an equitable process for everybody across the board and not exclude anybody because I really, how would I even know, right? I'm not that medical profession. I'm not that professional. I'm not that family. I'm not living that situation. And the next ONA may change everything for that kiddo. I don't know. But in the meantime, we want to open it to anybody who feels passionately about being on that wait list. And it's better to give the opportunity and be equitable than then shut families down. They've already on a day-to-day basis that I am not aware of. So that's the philosophy. As me as the program coordinator, that's the stand that I'm taking. And so I do clearly hear the expression and the concern about increased workload. And I did just want to reiterate what Caitlin has already shared, that that transaction request is only for kiddos who are already 5B, 5M, right? And then, of course, the counseling and guidance to families as they inquire about the program going forward. Do we have anything else in the chat? I see some things popping up as I was talking.
Kudos to you, Yolanda, in the chat. And then a question from Sylvia. When a family is given notice that they are up on the wait list, it's their turn. What is the expectation for timelines for entering them, especially if they are coming from CIIS? Sylvia, great question. So they have that 60-day window to accept or decline the offer. If they do have to transfer to CIIS, we expect people to coordinate and for that to happen in a reasonable amount of time. There's not a specific 5-day, 10-day turnaround, but it could be that it's, I think in some of the cases that I've seen already, the CIIS service coordinator has done some of that planning work, has done the change form to add the parent attendant care. They have done the freedom of choice and those things before initiating the transfer to the CDDP. So that's kind of out of the way. There are lots of ways that could look, but we just expect, teams to work together in a reasonable amount of time and for things to happen as quickly as they can. A lot of the delays, frankly, have been on the provider agency side and the family finding the place to work and going through that hiring process. If there is anything taking longer than expected, we can extend deadlines for families, and that's happened already a number of times. So you'd think that everyone would be jumping to do this really quickly, but that hasn't actually been the case. Lots of people have taken plenty of time to find a place to work, to go through the training, to get all the required steps in order. So it hasn't been instantaneous for everybody.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And I think I totally missed the time. You said 60 days? Sorry.
They have 60 days just to accept or
Okay.
decline. And that's
Got
once
it.
they do that, that's when the ball starts rolling with now the change form is needed. Now the freedom of choice form is needed, that kind of thing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just to add to that, when the family will have 60 days, they receive a letter, and the letter from ODDS has a date on it, and it's that date on the letter that they will receive offering them that position in the program. That starts that timeline. And at the same time, the service coordinator will receive an email from the CEN program or myself, just letting them know this individual is up for consideration for this position, and have you work with them to help them make the right choice for their family and their kiddo. Circling back around to a comment here, I'm not seeing the full email that entails all of the express tips for CMEs to view the individual's waitlist number on the in Express, but it was sent out via, I think they're called express train messages. It's the September 19th express train message, and it's coming through slowly on my end, kind of step by step, but those are the process. That's the process that you will find in the worker's guide on how to look up a family's number on the wait list in Express, or child's number on the wait list in Express. And so if you are enrolled in the Express train messages, you can get into your messages and find the September 19th one that came out. That's specific to how to run those reports to get those numbers.
The length of the message is limited, so I had to send
That
it
what
in
it
chunks.
is?
Yeah.
Thank you for sending that. Okay, we've got 30 more minutes if you'd like to ask any questions. Don't be shy. Or are we just that efficient that we got through all of that?
No, I just want one more on follow up on that timeline. So I get the family has 60 days to make that decision. And I know this last round, some families wavered back and forth because there were so many questions. But once they do make the decision, then is there another timeline um, to get all the change form and all of that going?
The one thing that applies, Sylvia, is the program, the kind of ongoing eligibility criteria says that the parent has to be working
Mhm.
within 90 days of them accepting that offer. So that's the
Okay.
one timeline that applies. It's pretty good length of time, but there
Yeah.
have been a couple of cases that have been extended because they haven't been able to get hired for, they maybe haven't chosen the agency yet, or there's some kind of
Mhm.
delay. A family, I think, got sick and was, out of kind of commission for a chunk of time and couldn't get those things done. So it's 90 days for them to get hired. And then they have to provide a service, like a paid parent attendant care service, at least once every 90 days to continue, for the child to continue being eligible for the program. And that the length of time there doesn't seem very frequent. We've had some requests from actually families to shrink that length of time so they're working more frequently. But the intent there is that some of these children might end up in the hospital. They would be hospitalized for a significant length of time. And then in those times, the parent is not working, and we don't want those
Mm.
children to be bumped off the program.
Thank you. Okay.
So I'd like to pose a question to everyone. Was today's session helpful to you? Did you find benefit or in today's session? Do we need to consider opening more technical assistance questions going forward, maybe on a regular basis to answer this? Or do you feel like you've had enough support as the program's been, progressing and to more of a stable situation? Wow, just one at a time.
I would say more sessions. I don't know if monthly, but just as since this is all rolling out and families are experiencing different things, can address those as things.
That's wonderful. And if you're not comfortable coming off mute and sharing anything, please drop it in the chat. We are going to make sure that we go back and read this and capture this information so that way we are here to serve the families, but also we're here to support our case management entities and our service coordinators as they go forth and serve the families as well. So that's the intent of today, is to really provide that support to you, answer any questions or anything you may be wondering before that November 1st deadline, to be able to make sure that you are able to provide the best service as possible.
Can I speak as I don't want to cut anybody off. I feel like this was pretty simple sounding. I haven't had to sign anybody up yet, so maybe I'm speaking before I am really getting my fingers dirty. But it makes sense to me. I feel like we kind of are allowing a lot of people to get on the wait list, which may keep other people from getting there quickly, but I kind of understand why you guys are doing it that way. And hopefully that'll be a quick process of saying, well, sorry, you're not going to make it. And obviously we're going to not really push for anybody that's not in that category to get on the wait list. Oh my gosh, I had something that I was actually going to say. Shoot. Sorry, I did forget. But so far it does seem fairly simple. With the workers guide and everything for Express, I know that's where I know a lot of people are going to be saying that they're going to be, where am I on the wait list? So that'll be helpful.
I will note that the families can also email CEN program and ask that question, and we'll let them know. And that does happen a lot too, where we get the emails, where am I on the wait list? And we tell them. Yeah.
Okay.
We don't know
cool,
how
thank
that's
you.
going to turn out next week, or who's going to
Yeah.
be added. It'll be interesting to see and how that looks, who comes and who doesn't. And that's a data point too for the legislature to say this is the interest in the program. And
Yeah. So I did remember what I was going to say. So I'm the one that asked about the infant 5, right? And that child is going to have probably 5M as they get older. If I encourage them to get on the wait list now, which it makes sense the way you're talking, because it could be such a long wait, I should just do that like let them know right now because they just completed their ONA not too long ago. So I tell them, let's get you on this. This could be beneficial to you guys, but they're also in child welfare. So, but then, like you said, that could change.
Mhm. Yep.
I think that
So
sounds like
just
a
put
good
them on
plan.
there
Yeah.
and let's
Yeah.
see what happens. Yeah. Okay. Because I think that will be a constantly changing thing. So I could see how that would make sense. Okay. All right. Thank you.
I'm seeing in the chat that there's a few people who feel like having these optional technical assistance calls will be beneficial. So we will definitely offer these going forward, but they will never be required or mandatory. So when you can make it, you can make it. And if you can't, then that's all right too. We will always try to record these so that way we'll have them available so you can watch them later on at your convenience. So I think that if there are no more questions, we could definitely go ahead and wrap up and everybody could have a good 25 minutes back in their calendar.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks for coming today.